Hello and welcome to my LFR guide to Siegecrafter Blackfuse. This is a single phase fight, and the fight is a combination of dealing with the machines that he spawns and then dealing with his abilities. The machines are spawned off an assembly line, and about 2 players will jump onto the assembly line periodically when it activates to destroy one of the machines, which makes the fight easier. And essentially the fight just goes on like this, and what I'll do here is I'll go into detail about all the adds, the abilities, the assembly line, and I'll round it off with a general overview of the strategy. So, adds. There is only one kind of add that spawns, and it's called an automated shredder. These spawn periodically and are tanked by the tank who is not tanking Blackfuse. They have an ability called reactive armor, which reduces their damage taken by 80%. However, they can be damaged by some of the fight's other mechanics. These are called serrated slash, shockwave missile, detonate, and superheated. I'll go over these in a bit more detail later on in the video. They also do an ability called Death from Above. This causes them to jump up and then slam down on a player, doing heavy damage to everyone within 15 yards of them. After landing, the Shredder is stunned and takes 200% damage. Finally, they will do Overload, which causes them to do 140,000 damage to players who are not on the assembly line. Overload is really the main reason why you want these guys dead, because if there's multiple of them up, the raid-wide damage is just too damn high. Now next, let's talk about Siegecrafter Blackfuse's abilities. The first is called Serrated Saw Blade. He shoots a saw blade at a player, it spins around, and don't stand in it. These can damage the shredders. Next, he has Protective Frenzy. He gets 100% attack speed for 10 seconds after you kill one of his creations. Also, he has Electrostatic Charge. Now, this is the main tank ability. This does medium tank damage and applies a debuff called Electrostatic Charge, which will cause Electrostatic Charge to do an additional 100% on the target, meaning that you will have to swap out of it. Now, the person who is hit by Electrostatic Charge also gets a buff which causes them to do 200% damage to the Shredder, meaning that they are most definitely the person who should be tanking the Shredder because of that extra 200%. Also, he has an ability called Automated Repair Beam. This will cause him to heal any damaged Shredders within 35 yards of him for 5% of their health every 3 seconds. Because of this, the tank who is tanking the Shredder must be more than 35 yards away from Siegecrafter Blackfuse. And finally, his last ability is called Energized Defense Matrix. This happens when you fail to kill one of the adds on the assembly line, and it gives Blackfuse 90% reduced damage taken for 20 seconds. Honestly, you should never fail the assembly line, meaning that this ability should never happen. Now, the thing you're probably wondering is, well, what's up with this assembly line and what's up with the things that it does? So that's what I'm going to go into now. To enter the assembly line, first jump onto the pipes on the side of the room, and to exit it, jump on the exit pipes at the bottom of the conveyor belt on the assembly line. It'll make sense to you when you're there. There are also beams on the assembly line. Don't stand in them, they will burn you and kill you. 2 players should go onto the belt every single time it activates and kill one of the adds there. It doesn't really matter which, because, well, it just didn't matter to us. It may matter to your group, but we found that just killing one was really all you needed to do. You can't kill more than one, so yeah, that's a thing. Now, as for the actual adds, assuming that you do manage to kill one on the assembly line, it will spawn two kinds of I suppose, things once the assembly line finishes. The first one is called Shockwave Missile. This hits the ground and causes drills to surge up from under the ground. There are 2 red lines, and the drills will appear in between these, so don't stand in between the 2 lines. And these, like this pair of 2 lines, will move out radially from the point at which the missile lands. So you definitely need to watch out for these 2 red lines, make sure you're not standing in them, and make sure you're not standing where they're going to appear. The next thing is Laser Turret. This puts a stack, it's just a laser on the ground, it's pretty simple, and it puts a stacking dot of 24,000 damage per second on a player or a Shredder that's standing in it, and it stacks up to 20 times. So if you're the tank who has the Shredder, you'll ideally want to kite the Shredder into the Laser Turret so that it takes all that lovely damage. Next, we have the Electromagnet. This deals with light, raid-wide damage and pulls players towards it. It will pull all the saw blades in the room to its location, causing them to do damage to any players in the way. So ideally, if you're a player, you don't want to, of course you're a player, you don't want to like line yourself up in between a saw blade and an electromagnet. The final one is the Crawler Mine. He'll spawn a bunch of them and they will fixate on a player. They do strong raid-wide damage if they hit players, so be sure to run away, and you want to kill them within 1 minute or else they will get a buff which speeds them up. That's essentially it, and I have went through a whole bunch of stuff, but honestly, the way this fight comes together, it's just not that hard. So finally, I'm just going to round off a little bit of an overview. So for DPS players, 2 of you will need to go to the assembly line and deal with that. The rest will just nuke Blackfuse and the crawler mines, and you need to be aware of all the raid mechanics so that you avoid damage. For tanks, obviously you need to tank the boss, and then swap on the debuff. The debuff player is the person who takes the Shredder, and they are tanked 35 yards away from Blackfuse. If possible, you want to tank them into any of the additional damage from things like the laser turret. And finally for healers, it's just the usual, but prepare for heavy raid-wide damage based on some of the abilities that are coming out. For an example, if you see a crawler mine going off, or people standing in a shockwave missile, that kind of thing, just be ready for a lot of raid-wide damage. Often the shockwave missiles can line up in a way that a lot of people get hit at once, and it's just not nice for a healer. So yeah, that's the fight. Honestly, I was extremely surprised how easy this was. We killed it in 2 shots, with the first one being a ninja pull, so it was definitely quite doable. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and found it useful, I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed, and with that, I'll see you next time.